Summit season is in full swing, with China delivering key messages at events for the G20, BRICS and APEC. From fighting the pandemic to restoring the global economy, what are China's proposals? And what do they reveal about China's post-COVID vision? And the U.S. State Department issued a report called The Elements of the China Challenge, listing 10 tasks for recalibrating American foreign policy. How grounded are these concerns, and what's the impact on China-U.S. relations, especially with the new U.S. administration on the horizon? Welcome to The Point, coming to you from Beijing. I'm Wang Guan, sitting for Liu Xin. In his virtual G20 Leaders Summit address on Saturday, Chinese President Xi Jinping urged countries to cooperate on the global fight against COVID-19 and to ensure the smooth functioning of the global economy. He also emphasized the importance of building a multilateral platform that is open, inclusive, balanced, and beneficial to all. This year's G20 summit comes on the heels of a series of other major international events where China shared its proposals and reaffirmed its commitment to further opening up, including the BRICS and APEC events held earlier this month. What key messages is China sending via these series of high-level meetings? What do they say about China's geopolitical considerations at this point? Joining me for the discussion in Beijing is Einar Tangen, current affairs commentator. And also in Beijing via Skype is Wang Huiyao, president for the Center for China and Globalization. Welcome, gentlemen. During these meetings, President Xi proposed many ideas for the post-COVID world. For example, on post-COVID relief at the G20 summit, President Xi talked about the importance of building what he called a global firewall against COVID-19. And he said this: China actively supports and participates in international cooperation on COVID-19 vaccines. We will honor our commitment of giving assistance and support to other countries in need and work to make vaccine a global public good, accessible and affordable to people around the world. Einar, let me go to you first. I mean, what do you make of what President Xi said, especially when he talked about building a global firewall?
Well, quite frankly, there's a great need for this. What's happening in Europe and around the world, in the United States especially, has made it clear that there has to be extraordinary steps. And I think what Xi is referring to is applying technology to this. The global internet can be a wonderful way of dealing with it, especially when you get to tracing. And this is one of the areas where both Europe and the United States are way behind. And I think he's trying to say, look, the next economy, the technology economy is upon us. The information economy is here. We have to prepare for it and use it to prevent these kinds of issues becoming major problems. And that's how you could create this kind of firewall. You can be inclusive, you can make sure that everyone is there, and you can use the tools that are presented to you. There are a lot of concerns in the West about whether this would invade their privacy, but quite frankly, it can be limited. And the issue is you have to do what is necessary to save as many people as possible.
Right. President Wang, what do you think? I mean, how significant is the Chinese leaders' proposals, and how receptive do you think our partners in the West and around the world will be to President Xi's ideas?
Well, I think this is really a very pragmatic suggestion coming from the top leader from China. Basically, you can see that China has actually already contained the virus. China has experimented the methodology that has widely now practiced in many countries now, that you have quarantine, you have massive testing and contact tracing and big data against COVID-19. And what's more important, I think that China has actually also is one of the leading countries in vaccine development, and actually China also joined the COVAX initiative led by WHO, and China has actually has done already applied millions of the vaccine tests for the Chinese people and people around the world now. So I think when China said that, like to collaborate, like to be inclusive, likes to help, China mean what it means. So I think that China has the capacity and R&D capabilities to do that. Also that China now is one of the probably the most strong economy that has been stayed at out of COVID-19. So it's more so that China can really provide this kind of support. So I think making it a public good is not just a wishful thinking, but it's actually China can do that. And China's president actually already pledged $2 billion in fighting COVID-19 a few months ago. So I think this is really quite possible now. China has already come to the time that China really can make this happen.
Right. If you listen to what the Chinese president has said, there were a series of specific proposals. For example, on battling COVID-19, he said there should be a global mechanism on the mutual recognition of health QR codes. Make it accessible, and countries around the world recognize one another's QR code. And also, there should be a fast tracking, of borders, to get people moving again. Einar, how appetizing do you think these ideas will be to countries that have concerns about privacy that you've been talking about?
Well, that's what it is. I mean, you have a point right now where you have to choose. Are you going to go for your health and the economy, or are you simply going to say, no, I'm going to stand on my rights not to divulge my information? I mean, it's kind of a silly idea because, quite frankly, Facebook and a lot of other entities, and some people suspect a lot of governments already have this information. It would be much better if it was used for productive purposes to keep you alive and keep the economy going.
Right. President Wang, China also said, can't emphasize this enough, the importance of the United Nations. China wants to build strong institutions globally, multilateral institutions, and mobilizing global resources and coordinating global actions to fight this pandemic. President Xi particularly emphasized the role of WHO. So what kind of role do you expect the WHO to play, especially with the new administration in the U.S. on the horizon? Do you see China and the U.S. coming together and cooperating under the framework of WHO going forward?
Well, I think it's quite possible. I think that President-elect Biden actually largely wins his election based on his commitment to fight COVID-19, and then he made a huge difference of his team that he's emphasizing of COVID-19 fighting, but also he has said he will come back to WHO. And so I think China has been cooperating quite well with WHO, and I really think that China and the U.S., being the two largest economies in the world, being the two probably most advanced in vaccine development country in the world, should actually work together and demonstrate some kind of a commitment to the world. And maybe U.S. should still restore his leadership as well in terms of with Western countries in fighting COVID-19, and then plus China now has really already done quite successfully. So I think probably on that fighting that if we really not really going to go over the politics and of that, but really let's get the WHO more focused. Let's get more support. Let's get companies, vaccine companies in both countries more supportive. I think it's quite possible that U.S.-China can work together on that.
Well, Einar, talking about economic recovery, there are of course challenges facing different countries. When I talk to some of my American friends, they say this is a tough choice between life and livelihood. On one hand, they need to prevent themselves from getting contracting the virus. On the other, they need to get enough income to pay for their mortgages, their rent. What kind of challenges do you foresee when it comes to different countries at different stages of the second wave of COVID, engineering an economic recovery?
Well, I put it down to one simple thing. If you're in the United States and somebody's doing contact tracing, it's somebody who has a piece of paper and a phone, and they're literally trying to call and retrace your steps based on where you tell them you've been, and then try to branch out based on who may or may not have been exposed and trying to get them to quarantine, etc. In China, you do it with your phone. You simply, anywhere you go, restaurant, shopping mall, even into your own compound, your housing compound, you show that, and that way people know where you have been, and they can tell you immediately if you have been exposed. I mean, it makes tremendous sense, and until you can control the virus, you cannot estimate or dig yourself out of the economic consequences.
Right. Let's talk about two major trade deals signed in the past 2 weeks. RCEP is one of them. President Wang, as you and your organization have been talking about these trade deals. China says it welcomes all partners, including India, with whom it had a border dispute, to join RCEP. And on the other hand, President Xi said China is actively considering joining the CPTPP, the successor trade deal to TPP. What do you make of President Xi's gestures?
Well, I think this is really a major breakthrough. Actually, we see the regional multilateralism is reviving. RCEP is really a great landmark of the regional integration of the Asian plus some Pacific countries to really work together on the largest free trade deal in the world, probably. And also, on the other hand, China is, expressed its strong interest in joining the CPTPP, which is also used to be led by the U.S. on TPP. So I think that China is really expressed a lot of new signals that China is really willing to work with both the RCEP countries, but also CPTPP countries. And also, as we know that President Obama and President-elect Biden has actually concluded the TPP during their administration. So it's quite possible President Biden will come back to the CPTPP,
yeah.
so that China and US will have more.
You really can't wait until January the 20th, right? So can't Einar, I'm sure of that. But Einar, let's talk about this CPTPP. What do you make of the fact that President Xi Jinping said China is actively considering joining the trade deal?
Well, China right now is walking into a vacuum that's been created by the U.S. Not only on foreign policy, but it's in response to COVID-19. So he's walking the walk, he's talking the talk. He said open and inclusive, and that's what he's doing. Even to countries, both Australia and India, where there have been issues. I would assume that he would do the same for the U.S. Once Biden gets in. He's not trying to close doors, he's trying to open them. And this is a very marked difference between these, what you have with under Donald Trump and what Xi Jinping is proposing.
And basically, you think this is saying that China is joining the one of the largest trade deals across Asia-Pacific region, and so should the Biden administration?
I don't think Biden can. Politically, it'll be very difficult because there's a lot of Democrats who are opposed to TPP. If you remember, Clinton reversed herself on it and said she was against it. At this time, there would be too much fear that jobs are going to disappear. Look for him to start looking at the WTO. He has the power to start appointing appellate judges, which gives it the authority to make rulings and decisions. If he does that and also uses that as a leverage point to start changing some of the things that are necessary to the WTO, that would be a possibility, but the other two are not.
Mm-hmm. President Wang, the Chinese president also said China does not seek to decouple, nor does it seek to form small cliques to exclude other countries or keep other countries out. What do you make of that?
No, I think the inclusive openness is always China has been preached for, and also China trying to practice on that. So I think that now we have this transition time going on with the U.S. new election. So I think that reviving the multilateralism, reviving the regional cooperation is going to reboot the globalization new momentums. So I think that China joined by doing the action, joined RCEP, proposing to join TPP, CPTPP, by announcing that 2060 China will be carbon neutral. Probably China and the EU are going to conclude these bilateral investment treaties. China is exercising a lot of new initiative and basically trying to really reboot the globalization. I think that is great that China is taking some actions. I'm sure this is probably some new gifts to President-elect Biden, because he's actually also wants to go back to multilateralism with more U.S. emphasized system. I think we have a lot of ways to talk. There's more platform, and China and the U.S. being both largest economy in the world, really should work on the multilateralism and take the world out of this crisis of fighting pandemic.
Yeah, talking about the future of globalization, I remember at the CCG event, the UN coordinator in Beijing said we should build globalization back better. And hopefully that will be the case. I want to thank both of my guests, Einar Tangen, current affairs commentator, and Wang Huiyao, president of the Center for China and Globalization.